Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Management Talk with LJ and Jocelyn. And today we're going to talk about something extra special. At least I think it's extra special. Now, just to remind you, these started as talks between LJ and myself a long time ago. And with our combined over 40 years of experience in the nonprofit field alone, we thought that we'd talk to each other and to you about different things that we've come across, so that they will hopefully be a great help to you. So LJ and I were brainstorming, as we often do, and one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the sweet spot. LJ, you want to let them know what the sweet spot is?
Yes, let's tell them what the sweet spot is. And welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Management Talk with LJ and Jocelyn. We're so happy to have you. But yeah, today we're going to talk about that sweet spot that you have to be clear on in all things grant writing.
All things grant writing.
Well, you know what it is? Let's tell them.
Okay, you ready? It's where grant writing, donors, and development all come together.
Woo, that's a lot.
Right? I mean, how many times do things get confused in the field?
You know, what's really interesting about the topic, and this is why I'm so happy we're talking about our sweet spot specifically today, people lose sight, I think, especially our C-suite folks and board of directors for our nonprofits, they lose sight in how important it is to really think about income generation in a tiered perspective, right? When you think about income generation, you automatically think of that synonymously with fundraising, okay? And you should, because that's what it is. That's what fundraising is. But what happens to get you to the point where you can generate income, right? It's the process of getting to the point where you can generate income. So it's not enough to hire your major gifts officer or your fundraiser, right? Your chief fundraiser. It's not enough to have them. They've got to have support. And that support is always going to be your development folks and your grant writers, or your grant managers, I should say. Because when you look at grants management, as opposed to grant administration, for example, grant management includes the process of identifying suitable opportunities, right? And then that's the second step of that first step is actually writing those grants and proposals. So when we look at a grant manager, we're looking at a person who can literally handle your grant writing pieces as well as your proposal writing pieces. And that is not a simple process. As you know, that is a very left-brained process. So, and that's the reason why that person's not going to be your development person, right? The development person is the right-brain person. They're completely opposite of the grant management, grant administrator person. They're not about the rules. They're not about continuous improvement. They're about people, okay? They're about, getting engaged. They're about extroverted things. They're about social media and communications. That's the type of stuff that they like to get into, because those are the things that really sort of generate leads, in terms of identifying prospects and identifying prospective donors. Then those two together really are the ones who support your chief fundraisers, right? The chief fundraiser can do their job and do their job well when they're able to generate income from the individual and business side of the houses that can then be matched or then be supported by the work of the grant writer doing a lot of the foundation grant writing, the proposal writing for the foundation's government, et cetera. So it's people have to think of it as a very symbiotic process where which all of us need each other truly to survive and to thrive.
Right. Well, and a lot of times what really happens is that people forget all of that. So, the number one thing that, I know I've been hired, congratulations, you're the chief fundraiser. And by the way, you're the grant writer and you're head of all of the events. And let's take on those donor relations and donor management, and let's see, let's recruit board members. Oh, let's keep the entire C-suite happy and the board of directors, and let's train them, right? And then everybody goes, well, why are you working so many hours? Why isn't this done yet? Why? See, that's one of the biggest things I know that I've talked with my clients over the years, and I know you have too, which is, guys, it needs to be separate people. If you want to develop the grant, your nonprofit organization correctly as a business, you have to think about it that way. Now, yes, it's
You're
true.
absolutely right.
Just like any other business, when you found a business, the folks that are in the founding of the business early on wear many hats. A nonprofit organization is no different. The founder and the founding board, because it's a corporation straight off the bat, so you have a board, they're going to wear many hats. But as things grow, you're going to start hiring into these other positions. So if you're an early stage nonprofit, like right now, you might be the founder and you may be the major donor fundraiser, you might be the grant writer, you might be, you know, all of that, but it's about starting to pull those pieces apart as your job grows, as the position grows. I often tell people that a lot of times people think within an organization that the most important second person in the organization is the COO, especially in a nonprofit organization, or the CFO, depending what you're talking about, or the chief programming officer. But outside of the CEO or the executive director, depending where you are in the country and how that's called, really in a lot of respects, it is that development person, because the development, the head of the development effort, what we would call a chief fundraising person, right? They are the ones who are the most direct extension of the CEO's position, helping to offset so that the CEO is really concentrating on major donors and doing all the PR work and everything that goes into making the organization visible. And behind them is that chief fundraising person and that team. But that team needs to be a grant writer / manager, because sometimes it is the same person depending on how big you are. But that you need like a development associate who can handle all of the paperwork. If anybody's familiar with DISC, those are your more kind of C-structured folks, right? Data, that they're very good at keeping all the pieces, answering the phone. And you need somebody else who's a donor, what I would call a donor relations person, or in other words, they're handling the smaller donors and like that, but keeping them engaged and making sure that they know, you know, what's going on, while the chief fundraising officer is concentrating on certain major donors in conjunction with the CEO and or the executive director and the board.
Yep,
but it gets
right.
so confused. But when you can get that, it's definitely the sweet spot. Like, because it's humming along, right? Just like like a well-oiled engine. You know?
That's right. And you're right. Without any of these pieces, the job just becomes burdensome, but it also becomes almost impossible to try to do correctly and do well. And so that's when you see a lot of the turnover, you see a lot of attrition in these types of organizations, that they don't really understand how to respect the scope of work for the development person versus the scope of work for the grants person. And then, you know, of course, for your fundraisers on the more C-suite level. And, you know, in addition to the turnover, you'll see that a lot of the records are not going to be kept because these individuals were overworked, they were overwhelmed. Every day they were basically trying to identify different opportunities and you know, bring them into fruition almost immediately. And that's the other part of the conversation that a lot of our board of directors and our presidents and EDs don't want to have, is that you're not going to see immediate results. And that's okay. That's what it's supposed to be like, especially during the pandemic. Your work is probably exceptional, and it's probably getting a lot of likes and a lot of shares and a lot of clicks, but the difference is that you can't see it. You can't see it on social media because you don't see the likes and you don't see the shares. But that does not mean that progress is not being made, and that does not mean that you're not getting your goals achieved. It just means that it's delayed, you know. Right. The actual observation is going to be delayed, and that's another part of the conversation. I know, especially for us grant professionals, that is the one that will make you bang your head on the wall time and time again, because you're like, man, I've put out, 15 or 20 different applications, and I haven't got anything back yet. Well, yeah, there's a pandemic. Go back and actually reach out to the program officers and check in and see, have they given out any updates? What's the status of your application? Don't just sit and wait. Go out there and actually talk to your peers. You're not the only person who went and applied for that particular opportunity. Go and talk to those peers, and that's really where the sweet spot can be accentuated. That's when you go and talk to that development person and you say, hey, you've got a relationship with this nonprofit over here that we work with, right? I wonder if they applied for the same thing, or if you're a school campus, okay, well, my school district put in for this particular opportunity. We are in similar size and in similar capacity to this other school district. I'm sure that they did as well. Let's go and reach out to their development people to see if they can reach out to their grant people and give us a nice, warm introduction. Those are the types of ways you have to think. You have to think very strategically, but also be ready for those rejections, and don't stop there. The rejection is not a final. It's all about relationship building. And as a grant writer or grant manager, I don't encourage you necessarily to try to do that all on your own. That's really not your scope. The sweet spot, again, is respecting everybody's lane, and that is your development person's lane. So go to them and let them do their job. And I know for a lot of us grant professionals, it's very difficult to hear and difficult to settle on, but that's the reality.
Right. Well, it can be from the aspect of, for so long, not every organization, but unfortunately, I'm just going to say it, there is a huge percentage of organizations that believe that it should be one person. And so what happens is we all can kind of develop that habit of going, well, I gotta go take care of it because this is what they expect. It doesn't matter what my position is. It doesn't matter if, we have that. But I can remember where I had a team that very clear augmentation, and one of the team members who actually, she was the development associate, and instead of bringing a pretty major donor's request to myself and the ED, she just decided she was going to take care of it. And the problem is that it wasn't that she took the initiative, because I was thrilled that she took the initiative. The problem is that the solution was wrong. And and the truth is, she was afraid that we would cut her out of it. And the truth was, at least for me, I would not have cut her out of that request at all. But it caused a different ripple. And this is why I know that I advise people all the time. I'm like, especially with this, you have to recognize how this works. And, as grant folks too, a lot of times we do hit our heads against the wall because we're waiting on things, or one side doesn't see the other. Today we're talking about the fundraising. At some point we'll probably talk about some of the other pieces to keep it as a well-oiled machine, I'm sure. But I think in the end, it's just really important for everybody to keep in mind, if you want a functioning, well-functioning organization, you not only need to treat it like a business, but you need to build it like a business. And that means identifying the people that you need and making that work. Because if you don't have the right setup, you know, the truth is the nonprofit world's also a really tiny world sometimes, especially in certain communities, and everybody knows it. But LJ said one thing, and that has to do with like going to others, but there's another way too. Sometimes on grants, especially, you will actually collaborate with somebody who might even be in competition with you to join together. And so that's a whole nother aspect that I'm sure we're going to get into at some point, because
that's the fun stuff.
Things we could talk about, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, though, I think what LJ and I are both saying is, look, it's relationship driven. We oftentimes think that it's external relationship, but there's a lot of internal relationship. The fundraising period is all about developing good and strong relationships. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about working together, and any, you know, development directors, managers, whatever that are out there that might listen to this, you know, the thing I'd say to you is, if your staff takes initiative, tell them, great job, even if it wasn't the right thing, and you're going to have to go hit your head against the wall to correct something. But sometimes when they're doing that, they're also signaling, which in this particular case, which was she didn't know how to tell me, so because I had just come into the department, that she was ready for bigger opportunities. So we made that happen, you know. So it's complex. This is a complex subject. I mean, we're trying to say, you know, it is the sweet spot, but it's still complex because we're human. And, right? As humans, we sometimes do some interesting things. That's what I'd say.
That, and just like in that example you gave, upward mobility, right? I mean, I think that it's the other issue of, you know, with staying in the sweet spot, and really just understanding what the sweet spot is, and then actually being able to get comfortable enough to want to stay in it. You know, it can be very difficult to manage that, because a lot of times engaging the sweet spot is very egotistical. You know, like you said, there's a lot of people who want to be recognized for their work, as they should be. And, you know, in the sweet spot, it's really difficult to a lot of times pinpoint whose particular time and effort resulted in you getting that multi-million-dollar grant, for example. Right. And so because you're in that sweet spot, you've got to have a very strong team. The team building skills have got to be strong from that chief fundraiser. They've got to be strong. The chief development officer, whoever it is that's going to be the direct line supervisor to those employees, they've got to have some serious ability, some serious soft skills to be able to foster an environment of collaboration that's safe, where everyone trusts one another, and everybody is really interested in winning together, and not necessarily worrying about, you know, well, my name's on the grant application and we got it awarded, so the attribution comes to me. You know, you've got to have a very clear team-oriented sort of process to getting these wins, and I think that's how you sustain the sweet spot. But that's a really difficult conversation, difficult way to manage teams. And I think that'll be another really great conversation for us to have in the near future as well, in following up about the sweet spot.
Yep. And I think, folks, with those closing brilliant words from LJ. No, I mean, like, I think you like hit it nail on the head there. You know, I mean, I'm full of cliches, folks. What can I say? You know, I think we're gonna wrap this episode up, and we'll see you on our next episode. Bye, all.
Peace out.